Eruvin Daf, some of us took upon ourselves the smartphone challenge that is until Rosh Hashanah to limit smartphone usage, whether it's the internet, sports, news, etc. Simcha Frid says, I will only be using my internet for spiritual matters. P.S. Missing the Giant Steeler opening game tonight will be hard. Chazak v'amatz, way to go. Mark Ashkenazi writes that his father, Reb Chaim ben Chana, whom I sponsored the shir the other day, has been discharged from the hospital. Yeshikar for being mizakim with Min Daf yomi and making such an inspiring, captivating experience. Best wishes for Ksiva Chasimat Toiva. Mark Ashkenazi, your father should have a continued refuah. So, Eruvin Daf is discussing the shita of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, we'll see soon, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah holds yesh breira. That is, if you set down two eruvs or two eruvim before Shabbos, and two Talmidei Chacham come, one from the east, one from the west, you can decide on Shabbos retroactively, yesh breira, which one of the two eruvim you want to use. Rav says that according to Ayoy, the Tana, this is flawed. Ayoy holds, that Rabbi Yehuda holds, ein breira. It's only when a Talmid Chacham already arrived before Shabbos and you set two eruvim down and you just don't know which direction it came from, then the eruv is chal because it would happen before Shabbos. But you can't decide on Shabbos itself. And he brings proof from the buying wine from a kusi. Kusim are not careful with truma. Person who buys wine from a kusi has to be mafresh trumas and maisros. Now he doesn't have another vessel with him to put the trumas and maisros in, so he can do it in his head. And he'll say 2% goes to truma gdoila, 10% goes to maiser to the levi. Another 10% after that, in other words, from the 88% that's left over, 10% of that shall go to Meiser Sheni, in other words, to himself. He just has to redeem it on money. He does so on the spot. Tomorrow, he'll be mafresh at Truma. But tomorrow, he has to go retroactive and say that this, whatever is left over in the barrel, is the Truma. So we're using the concept of Yesh Breira. That's Remeir. However, Rabbi Yehuda says specifically over there, Ein Breira, and it doesn't work. So does Rabbi Yossi, so does Rabbi Shimon. Ein breira. The Gemara is going to analyze whether or not Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Shimon actually hold ein breira. Ula says it's not a good raya from Kusim because Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda actually say the same thing. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue with Rabbi Meir. They both hold yesh breira. Like in our mission that Rabbi Yehuda holds yesh breira. It's only Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon hold ein breira. The Gemara brings the Mishnah in Maseches Kinam. A woman who gives birth has to bring two korbanos. If she doesn't have money, she'll bring two birds. If she has money, she'll bring one bird and an animal. In this case, both women are buying birds. They buy them as a partnership. So you have 4 birds. They can tell the kohen, you decide which one of these birds is for who, and is it a chatas or a noila. So you see the concept of yesh breira. The kohen will decide retroactively what they bought. Says the Gemara, maybe it's not so. Maybe they stipulated specifically at the time of the purchase that the kohen will decide who the purchase was for. So that's different than breira. In fact, it comes to be mechadish like Rav Chizda. There's only 2 points of time when the animal, when the bird can be decided who it's for and what it is. And that's at the time of the purchase and at the time when the kohen is makriv on the mizbeach. But in between, no one, the women cannot decide who the bird is for and whether it's a chadash or an oila. There's a brisa that says that if a chaver who buys, let's say, a bread for an amaretz, from an amaretz, in other words, it's mechuyev in trumas ha'maisros, but if he buys it for someone else, if he decides right then and there it's for someone else, then that other person would have to bring trumas ha'maisros. But he buys it for himself, so to speak, because it's mixed up in his bag. Then he gives it to the amaretz. But we say yesh breira, and the chaver doesn't have to take trumas ha'maisros at the time of purchase. So what we're going to have to do is epoch. We're going to have to flip the shitas. Rabbi Yossi in this case is going to say ein breira to match his shita by wine. There's another brisa that if a person says whatever money comes out of my pocket, I'm going to use that to redeem the Meiser Sheni in my house. He could do so. In other words, yesh breira. And who says this? Rabbi Yossi. We're going to have to flip Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi is going to have to say ein breira. The problem is, it's 2 times that we flip versus the one brisa of Kusi. Shouldn't we do the opposite? Shouldn't we flip the wine and not flip the other ones? Says the Gemara, no. This case, with the money, it continues to say that if a person takes out a new coin, meaning he only has 1 coin in his pocket, in that case, Rabbi Yossi admits that yesh breira. In other words, in the first case, he doesn't say yesh breira. In the first case, he says ein breira. Therefore, we have 2 cases: money in the pocket and wine from a kusi, which Rabbi Yossi says ein breira. And therefore, the middle case of buying a bread, where he says yesh breira, we're going to have to flip that and say he says ein breira, so he's consistent. In all 3 cases, Rabbi Yossi holds ein breira. Rav asks Rav Nachman, who's the Tana that holds, even by Eruv, in other words, in the Derabanan, that ein breira. In other words, there's a case if a person decides, I'm making an Eruv and I'll decide for which one of the 5 people it is on Shabbos. It doesn't work if he decides that on Shabbos. It only works if he decides before. Who's that Tana? Reb Meir never heard of Ayoy. But Rav Yosef says it's a Mefurish Brayso. There's other Tanaim that say ein breira even in the Rabbanon. Now, there's a Reb Shimon who says yesh breira, and Chacham say ein breira. But the problem is that we said before, even according to Ula, Reb Shimon says ein breira, and Rav Yosef brings a brayso that says yesh breira. The Gemara gives 4 answers. Either our favorite answer, we flip the shita, we say Reb Shimon holds ein breira, and Chacham say yesh breira, or we could say that even Reb Shimon admits in the Rabbanon, like in the Eruv, the Rabbanon yesh breira. The other 2 answers are that wine, where Reb Shimon says ein breira, is different than an Eruv. Why? Reason number 1 is because there's a halacha that by Truma Maisros you have to differentiate and be able to see where the Truma is. You set the Truma aside. By liquids like wine, it's all mixed in, so you can't see where the Truma is. Let's say a pile of wheat, you say the Truma is in the center, that's okay, because you could differentiate, say that the side wheat is not Truma. Or you can say wine is different because we're concerned that perhaps the wine barrel will explode. You're drinking from this wine, assuming that tomorrow you're going to take Truma Maisros. But if tomorrow it explodes and you can't take Truma Maisros, what happened was that you drink Tevel. And there's a Chiv Mis on that, so we have to be concerned. Rabbi Yosef says, according to Reb Meir, we're not concerned that it's going to explode. Have a wonderful day.